Okay, so here we go. This is question 17. This is from the SAT number 9, April 2017. So let's jump in. So 17 says the author quoted in lines 58 through 60 expresses which view of the study's results. Honestly, the best way to go about this um, is just to go to lines 58 through 60 and pretty much see what is it that the author says about the study's results. So we go up to 58 through 60, which is here. People seem to have just a tiny glimmer of insight into how they are uniquely viewed by particular other people. So there's a couple things. So the way the question is worded, what it makes me think is, what is the author's opinion of the study's results? Do they support it? Is the author supportive? Are they critical of it? Do they disagree with it? So just based on that alone, I start by saying, okay, it seems like they agree with it, because both the author quoted and the researchers sort of say that we're not very good at understanding how other individuals feel about this. So it's positive. However, if we look at the answer choices, they're less talking about whether the author agrees with the study's results, and more so sort of what they contribute, or the way that they characterize the results, right? So let's jump in through the answer choices. So A says they indicate that there is a small but promising chance of correctly predicting how one is perceived. That doesn't look too good. Let me do this. That there is a small but promising chance of correctly predicting how one is perceived. Pretty interesting. Up here we say there's a tiny glimmer, people just have a tiny glimmer of insight into how they are uniquely viewed. So A right here is saying that there's a small chance, right, which makes sense, tiny glimmer of insight, but it's a promising chance. So it's interesting. It is true because it's not absolute. It's saying that we're not very good at understanding how other people think about us, but there is still this glimmer, right? There's still this promising chance. The promising word, however, though, is kind of interesting. It's sort of a weird kind of claim. Like, what does it really mean that it's a promising chance? But we can look back at it because it's not absolute. It sort of matches the basic pattern that we want. B says they show that individuals generally know very little about how they are regarded by groups of people. So this one also might seem correct, right? Individuals generally know very little. Tiny glimmer of insight, generally know very little. The issue, the thing that we need to pay attention to is this: by groups of people. Just going by memory, we should remember that the passage says that we're actually okay at understanding how groups of people view us, but we're not good at understanding how individuals feel about us. And even in the text right here, we're talking about specifically how other people feel about us, right? No clue about which coworkers in particular find you smart. So this is talking about how we think about how individuals feel about us, not how groups feel about us. So B is not going to be correct. C says they reveal that one individual hardly knows what another individual thinks of him or her. This one also kind of works. One, it's not absolute. It's not saying that we definitely have no idea what other individuals think about us. Two, it's emphasizing the fact that we know very little. It's just a tiny glimmer of insight. So one individual hardly knows. And then three, it is about the individual. So this is a pretty good answer choice. It's also kind of general, right? Whereas A is talking about this promising feature, which might be a little bit weird. C doesn't really have anything like that. It just says hardly knows, right? So we can choose C. C is a good option. D says they confirm that one's predictions about other people's impressions are no better than random guesses. This no better than random guesses, I don't know how to say it. It's not that it's necessarily negative, but it's a little bit flippant, right? More so than I'm typically looking for in an answer choice, a correct answer choice. Usually they're pretty vague, they're pretty dry. To say it's no better than random guesses stands out to me in a bad way. And if we look at exactly what the author says that we have a tiny glimmer of insight. So it's not better than just a random guess. It may not be much better than a random guess, but it still is better than a random guess. So D is going to be out as well. That's going to leave us with A or C. And the main difference between it is A says there's a small chance, but it's a promising chance. C says that one individual, that we hardly know what another individual thinks of us. And we have to decide which one works. So C is actually going to be the correct answer, because A has this weird part here about a promising chance. And it's not exactly clear what a promising chance could be, but it seems to suggest that even though we're not so good at understanding how individuals feel about us, there's still hope. There's still this promise that we might get better, or that we might be able to predict with some reliability how people feel about us. In any case, it's that extra element which makes C more general and A more specific. And so for that reason, C is going to be our better answer for this question.